This wasn't just a cartoon. This was a blueprint. The Boondocks disguised real game inside wild jokes and viral moments. But if you look closer, it was teaching you how to build wealth, claim power, and own your future. Behind the satire was strategy. Behind the laughs were lessons about money, mindset, and legacy. Most people watched for the jokes, but missed the gems. In this video, we're breaking it all down. How the Boondocks quietly schooled a generation on what it really takes to win in life, in business, and in culture. If you're ready to catch what they hid, keep watching. Huey Freeman isn't just a revolutionary, he's a strategist. In the Boondocks, he isn't waving a flag or marching in the streets just to be loud. He's calculating, deliberate, and always thinking 5 steps ahead. He's the embodiment of a young black mind awakened to the system and determined to find a way out that doesn't involve playing by its rules. From the very first episode, it's clear Huey isn't interested in fame, attention, or short-term gains. He represents something far more important: black independence and vision, and not just in a cultural or emotional sense, but in a financial, economic, and power-based sense. Huey is that voice in the back of your head telling you, don't just react, build. He sees the trap of consumerism. He sees how media manipulates the mind. And most importantly, he sees that real power comes from owning, not begging. Let's talk about that infamous BET protest episode. On the surface, it's hilarious. Huey goes to war with BET executives, exposing the network's obsession with toxic entertainment. But dig deeper, and the episode becomes something more: a battle for the mind of black youth. Huey's protest wasn't just about TV shows, it was about ownership of the narrative of the brand and of the cultural currency being broadcast into every black home. Huey understood that media is one of the most powerful tools for building or destroying wealth. If the stories we consume constantly glorify violence, ignorance, and short-term gratification, then that's what the next generation will pursue. But if we control our media, we can shape what success looks like, what legacy means, and what we value as a people. And here's the key: Huey wasn't trying to get hired by BT. He wasn't looking to fix the system from the inside. He wanted to build something outside of it. That's the difference between reform and revolution. That's the difference between participation and ownership. In today's world, Huey's mindset is more relevant than ever. While so many people are chasing clout, views, or a seat at the table, Huey reminds us to build the table, own the building, and eventually own the land the building sits on. It's a lesson that echoes the moves of real-life moguls: Tyler Perry building his own film studio, Issa Rae producing and owning her own IP, or Jay-Z's talking about owning the masters to his music. Huey is the animated version of this wealth-building mindset, dropped straight into a cartoon and disguised as a child revolutionary. Let's be real, most viewers missed that. They saw Huey as the serious one, or the angry black boy. But they didn't see that he was quietly modeling the blueprint for black freedom, economic self-reliance, intellectual ownership, and long-term vision. And this is where it ties back into the overall message of this video. The Boondocks wasn't just entertainment, it was coded knowledge. Each character taught a lesson, and Huey's was the most foundational: that wealth starts in the mind and grows through ownership. So the next time you rewatch that beta episode, don't just laugh at the chaos. Pay attention to what Huey was really doing. He wasn't just protesting bad TV, he was protesting the entire system that profits from keeping us distracted, divided, and broke. And in that protest, he was giving us the first step toward building real generational wealth, claiming the power to tell our own stories, own our own platforms, and think beyond survival. Because in the end, freedom without ownership isn't freedom at all, and Huey Freeman knew that from day one. If Huey represents ownership and long-term vision, then Riley represents the exact opposite: clout culture, consumerism, and the illusion of wealth. He's young, impressionable, and obsessed with everything flashy. Riley wants to be the next rapper, the next viral star, the next icon. But without the foundation, the discipline, or the understanding of how wealth is actually built. Riley Freeman is that kid who knows every rapper's chain size but can't spell credit. He's the walking, talking version of what happens when young black boys are raised on media that teaches them that money is for showing off instead of building freedom. And that's what makes his character so important, not because he's admirable, but because he's a mirror. Riley reflects what society has pushed onto black youth. That success means visibility, fame, and flexing. Let's talk about that classic episode where Riley buys grills, oversized chains, and expensive sneakers, all without a dime of real income. He's borrowing money, hustling favors, and going into imaginary debt just to keep up with a fantasy image of wealth. He doesn't own anything. He doesn't invest in anything, but he's desperate to look like he's already made it. And that's the trap. Riley's world revolves around external validation. He needs to be seen, liked, feared, or admired. His wealth is performative, and that's what makes him dangerous, not just to himself but to the culture. Because if the Rileys of the world grow up never understanding that wealth is quiet, they'll chase the flash forever and never touch real power. This is where the genius of the Boondocks kicks in. The show never glorifies Riley's lifestyle. It makes it comical, exaggerated, even sad. He's not winning, he's spinning. Meanwhile, Huey sits in the background, focused, centered, thinking long-term. One's chasing attention, the other's building strategy. It's a direct contrast. Riley wants the spotlight, Huey wants freedom. And let's not act like this isn't happening in real life. Scroll through any feed right now and you'll see Riley's influence everywhere. Flexing rentals, posting fake stacks, wearing designer with no savings. This isn't just entertainment. This is a real epidemic of financial illiteracy disguised as success. But here's what the Boondocks teaches us through Riley. You can't build wealth while chasing validation, because real wealth doesn't need applause. It doesn't beg for attention. It's built in silence over time, through ownership, investments, discipline, and delayed gratification. The exact things Riley runs away from. And this isn't about shaming him. It's about learning from him. Riley's character is a cautionary tale, a warning. He shows what happens when we're more focused on looking rich than being rich, on impressing strangers instead of securing our future. Think about this. Riley spends all his energy mimicking rappers and ballers, but he never studies how they really made their money. He sees the chains, but not the contracts. He sees the brand, but not the ownership behind it. That's what clout culture does. It removes the blueprint and replaces it with noise. Meanwhile, Huey's in the background studying systems, rigging, preparing. One day, Riley might realize the truth, but the Boondocks doesn't wait for him to get it. It shows you, the viewer, the game if you're sharp enough to see it. And that's the real brilliance of the show. Through Riley, it doesn't just criticize clout culture. It exposes how dangerous it is when we mistake image for impact. So if Huey taught us that ownership is the foundation, then Riley reminds us what happens when you build your life on image alone. It collapses the moment nobody's watching. Don't be Riley, learn from him, and build something that shines even when the cameras are off. If Huey represents vision and Riley represents clout, then Grandad, Robert Freeman, represents the weight of generational financial mistakes. He's old school, traditional. He wants comfort, respect, and a little recognition. But when it comes to money, Grandad is trapped in a cycle many of our elders know too well, chasing get-rich-quick schemes and falling for illusions of success, instead of building something real. Grandad means well, that's the key. He wants to leave something for Huey and Riley. He wants stability, but his lack of financial literacy constantly puts him in bad positions. And the Boondocks uses his character to show how poor planning, ego, and misinformation can derail even the best intentions. Let's talk about the timeshare episode. Grandad gets convinced he's making a smart investment, a vacation spot that promises luxury and status. But it's a scam. It's a high-pressure sales tactic dressed up like an opportunity. He doesn't read the fine print. He doesn't ask the right questions. He sees the lifestyle, not the liabilities. Sound familiar? This is a real-world reflection of what happens when older generations, especially in Black communities, aren't taught how to build or manage wealth. Many came from a time where survival was the priority, not investing, not ownership, not generational planning. So when they're presented with something that looks like wealth, they grab it. But looks are deceiving. Another episode that hits hard is when Grandad opens a soul food restaurant. He pours his money into the dream, which is admirable. But he does it with no business plan, no systems, no understanding of profit margins. It's all passion, no preparation. And the result? The business collapses. He ends up with debt, stress, and nothing to pass down. This is the lesson. Wealth doesn't come from hustle alone. It comes from structure. Passion is important, but without a plan, it's just noise. Grandad, like many first-generation wealth builders, operates from emotion. He wants to make up for lost time. He wants to prove he's still valuable. But the Boondocks shows how that mindset, without the right education, leads to self-sabotage. And again, this isn't about mocking Grandad. It's about recognizing the truth behind his story. In real life, many families have watched their elders fall into similar traps. Pyramid schemes, multi-level marketing pitches, shady insurance deals, real estate scams. Why? Because we weren't taught. We weren't given access to the financial playbook. But here's the power in Granddad's character. He becomes a warning and a wake-up call. His losses can be our lessons. His mistakes can be the foundation for a smarter next move. Because the truth is, the next generation can't build wealth until we stop repeating the financial missteps of the last one. And that means educating ourselves. It means understanding credit, reading contracts, learning the difference between assets and liabilities, and investing in things that grow, not things that only look good. Granddad teaches us that money alone doesn't fix money problems. Knowledge does, strategy does. And if we want real generational wealth, we have to combine his heart with Huey's mind. Imagine if Granddad had partnered with Huey to open that restaurant, with a business plan, community backing, and a long-term vision. That's the generational fusion we need. The grind of yesterday meeting the strategy of tomorrow. Because wealth isn't emotional, it's intentional. And the Boondocks reminds us, through every one of Granddad's schemes, that passion without a plan is a shortcut to broke. Learn the game, break the cycle. Don't just dream of wealth, prepare for it. Let's shift gears, because if the Boondocks taught us anything beyond money management, it's that media is the ultimate weapon. Aaron Magruder wasn't just exposing broken systems, he was warning us about who really controls the minds of the people. And if you look closely, he made one thing clear: media shapes behavior, and behavior shapes wealth. One of the show's most savage targets was BET, Black Entertainment Television. And it wasn't just jokes. The Boondocks accused BET of pushing ignorance, glorifying dysfunction, and poisoning black culture for profit. The episodes were wild. Characters like Deborah Leavell, a parody of BET's CEO, and fake BET execs plotted to destroy the black community from the inside. Funny on the surface, but dead serious underneath. The show was telling us, if you don't control your narrative, someone else will use it to sell you lies. Think about it. Media tells us what success looks like. It defines what it means to be rich, to be respected, to be valuable. It influences what we chase and how we see ourselves. And when you let corporations with no real connection to your community control that messaging, you get missiled by design. Let's tie this to real life. Ever noticed how certain platforms promote content that dumbs us down? Violence, drama, peace, flexing. At the moment a creator starts talking about credit, land, or ownership, the algorithm cools down. That's not random. That's narrative control. And if they control the narrative, they control where your energy and your money goes. The Boondocks knew that. That's why it didn't just attack BT. It also clowned viral trends, fake news anchors, and the obsession with clout. Remember the Gangstalicious episodes? Riley is hypnotized by a rapper who promotes gun violence and homophobia while secretly living a lie. That's a media critique if there ever was one. They're telling you how to act while they collect the bag. Now contrast that with Huey. He questions the media. He studies it. He sees how news cycles manipulate fear, how entertainment dumbs us down, how online fame has replaced real purpose. Huey represents media literacy, and that's the real money move most people miss. Because wealth isn't just in the bank. It's in attention. It's in influence. It's in storytelling. Whoever controls the platform controls the people. And that's why modern moguls like Tyler Perry and Issa Rae are rewriting the playbook. They don't just act. They write. They produce. They own the means of production. Tyler Perry built a 330-acre studio, bigger than Disney's and Warner Bros. Combined, right in Atlanta. That's not just black excellence. That's black media power. Issa Rae didn't wait for someone to greenlight her voice. She created Insecure from the ground up with her own pen and production vision. That's not fame. That's legacy. And the Boondocks was ahead of its time. It was telling you, you don't win the game by playing it. You win by owning the scoreboard. In today's creator economy, this lesson is louder than ever. You don't need to beg for permission to tell your story. You just need a platform and a plan. Because once you control your own media, you can educate, inspire, monetize, and shift culture, all without being filtered through a system that was never built for you to win. So yeah, the Boondocks made us laugh. But behind the comedy, it was dropping code. And one of its sharpest messages was this: if we don't take control of our narrative, someone else will rent our image and sell it back to us. In a world where attention is currency, media is wealth, and the Boondocks gave us the blueprint. The only question is, were you paying attention? By now, you've probably started to notice a pattern in the Boondocks. Every character isn't just a personality, they're a philosophy, a worldview. And when it comes to money and success, the contrast between Riley, Huey, and Uncle Ruckus breaks down into three mindsets you see every day in real life: flash, legacy, and loyalty to the system. Let's start with Riley. The the walking definition of flash over foundation. To Riley, being rich isn't about assets or investments. It's about perception. He wants to look wealthy. Chains, Jordans, grills, clout. He's loud. He's visible. But he's broke. And worse, he's proud to be broke as long as he looks like he's not. Riley's entire relationship with money is emotional. He wants attention, not assets. This is the get it now, post it now, spend it now culture we see all over social media. Flash wealth. It's fragile. It doesn't last. It's built on consumption, not creation. And Riley is a symbol of how that mindset keeps so many people stuck in the cycle of poverty with expensive shoes. Now contrast that with Huey. Huey's quiet money. Huey is strategy. He's the legacy builder. He doesn't need to be seen. He needs to be effective. He's thinking decades ahead about systems, sustainability, and freedom. Huey understands that true wealth isn't loud. It's structured. It's passed down. It's protected. Huey represents what real generational wealth looks like. Not just stacking money, but building tools to make that money work. Trusts, investments, ownership, education. He's the type who would rather own 10% of something powerful than 100% of something useless. Huey's mindset is the key to long-term freedom. Move in silence, stack in structure, and let your assets speak louder than your wardrobe. And then there's Uncle Ruckus, maybe the most tragic figure in the entire show. Ruckus doesn't care about wealth or flash. He's loyal to a system that hates him, uses him, and pays him nothing. He thinks proximity to power is power. He worships whiteness, corporate structure, and the idea that if I just follow the rules, I'll be taken care of. But the Boondocks makes it clear. Ruckus is broke, always has been, always will be. He's the symbol of a slave mindset in a capitalist system, loyal to institutions that exploit him while offering nothing in return. He won't invest, he won't learn, he just obeys. That's not wealth, that's voluntary economic slavery. So what can we learn from these three? From Riley, we learn that income isn't wealth. Just because you get money doesn't mean you're building anything. If you're not saving, investing, and structuring, you're just cycling cash through someone else's pocket. From Huey, we learn the difference between rich and wealthy. Rich buys chains. Wealth buys silence, freedom, options, and time. Huey's wealth isn't in what he owns, it's in how he thinks. And that's the real foundation. From Ruckus, we learn what happens when we never question the system. He's the cautionary tale, don't just work. Don't just obey. Learn, grow, think. Because the system isn't broken, it was built that way. So if you're serious about building wealth, take notes from Huey. That means set up trusts to protect your assets. Build investments that grow over time. Stocks, real estate, business equity. Practice financial discipline. Not every dollar is meant to be spent. Some are meant to be planted. Because in the end, wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how long it lasts after you're gone. Riley wants attention. Ruckus wants approval. But Huey wants freedom. And that's the only thing worth building for. If there's one thing that separates Huey from every other character in the Boondocks, it's this. He's not playing for today, he's planting for tomorrow. Every move Huey makes is bigger than him. Every word he speaks is laced with purpose. He's not living in the moment, he's living for the movement. Throughout the series, Huey is calm while others are loud. He's thinking strategy while others are chasing attention. Why? Because Huey understands something most people don't. Real wealth isn't fast, flashy, or loud. It's generational. And that's the real message the Boondocks delivers through his character. Legacy is the endgame. Not just money, but mindset. Not just assets, but impact. You don't build wealth just to spend it. You build it so it lives longer than you do. Let's keep it real. We weren't raised with this mindset. Many of us grew up watching our parents hustle just to survive. The bills were real. The stress was heady. The goal was to make it to the end of the month, not the end of a generation. And that's no one's fault. That's the result of systemic design. But it's on us now to break that cycle. That's why Huey matters. He represents the shift we have to make. He's the blueprint for the black builder who doesn't just want success. He wants succession. He protects Riley even when Riley doesn't get it. He challenges Granddad, not out of disrespect, but because he knows better decisions could change their future. Huey takes heat, loses popularity, and often stands alone, because that's the price of planting seeds that may not bloom your lifetime. And that's legacy. Legacy isn't about what you leave behind in your bank account. It's what you leave behind in your community, your family, your bloodline, and your blueprint. It's the story your last name tells after you're gone. And here's the truth that hurts. If we don't plant it, they won't have it. If we don't teach financial literacy, who will? If we don't pass down land, equity, ownership, and mindset, Then the next generation starts from zero again, just like we did. And that's not wealth. That's a treadmill. But it doesn't have to be that way. Huey shows us what it looks like to break that loop, to question everything, to invest in ideas, structure, discipline, and truth. He shows us that the greatest thing you can build isn't a business. It's a foundation, something your children and their children can build on top of instead of starting from beneath. This is why generational wealth isn't optional. It's mandatory, because every generation that doesn't build for the next one abandons them. So here's the challenge. Don't be the break in the chain. Be the link that strengthens it. You don't need to be rich to build legacy. You just need to be intentional. Start with your mindset. Learn what you weren't taught. Share it. Document it. Pass it down. Buy what appreciates, not what depreciates. Talk to your kids about money like it's part of life, not taboo. Because every step you take in discipline today makes someone else's journey lighter tomorrow. Huey lives like that. He carries the weight now so Riley doesn't have to. He fights now so the ones after him won't need to. And that's the lesson we can't afford to ignore. You're not just building for you, you're building for your last name. So the next time you laugh at a Boondocks episode, look deeper. There's game in every frame. Huey wasn't just talking, he was planting. And if we're serious about changing the narrative, it's time we did the same. For our name, for our kids, and for the legacy they deserve. So now that we've unpacked the Boondocks, ask yourself this. Was the show trying to teach us more than we realized? Beyond the jokes, beyond the wild moments, was there real game hidden in plain sight? If you caught a lesson that most people missed, drop it in the comments. Let's build a conversation that goes deeper than entertainment, because this wasn't just a cartoon. It was a code, a warning, a map. And if you were sharp enough, it taught you how to move different, think different, and build different. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're hungry for more decoded knowledge, more truth buried in culture, media, and the stories we grew up on. We're just getting started. They never gave us this game in school. They didn't print it in textbooks, but they hid it in our favorite shows, and now we're pulling it out. Stay sharp, stay building, stay legendary.